Oh, hello again. Oh, I can't get that height quite right. Good. Okay. So the fall, Michael Fitzalan. So this is about a scientist who is abducted from um, from England. Well, actually, from Russia. She is from England, and let's try and get the story right. Um, she's a professor, and she's working with another professor on a COVID type um, killer virus, and she is abducted um, across the border into Russia. Obviously, this is before the Ukraine war, um, and by some organization, she doesn't know who. And so this is a thriller, and it's a very strong woman character, and she's got some friends to help her. Um, she's got Andy, Hardeep, and Linda, and they're three friends who help her get out of all sorts of trouble and avoid all sorts of mischief. Anyhow, meet me later. Sorry, the fall, Michael Fitzalan. Um, here we are, and I'm going to read you chapter 6, Everything in the Garden. So everything in the garden is rosy, but it's not. Chapter 6, Everything in the Garden. On a bright summer Sunday, I looked out into the garden, which reminded me of my time at my flat in Cambridge, the superb light given to the south-facing aspect. Sipping some ginger herbal tea, I was still in my running gear, shorts, t-shirts, short socks, and trainers. I was due at my parents' house for lunch. My mother was making roast beef and Yorkshire puddings. The army had tried to turn me into vegan, but I was a carnivore at heart. Speaking on the phone during the week, I was nonetheless looking forward to seeing my family, especially as my sister was coming down from London. It was one of those rare occasions where I had time to kill. So I took my book, The Clapham Common Caper, and my tea outside to sit on a chair in the early morning light. After reading a chapter, I moved back inside. Briefly, it was so sunny outside and so dark in the cottage kitchen that I had to wait for my eyes to adjust. Boiling the kettle, I poured hot water over some oats and took my breakfast out to the garden and rejoined my book. Turning the 55th page and taking a swig of my cold tea, I heard a knock on the door. Actually, it was more like a desperate rapping. The hackles on my neck stood up. I was immediately perturbed. Without waiting for another rap, I stole into the kitchen, shut and bolted the back door, slipped the sideboard drawer open, retrieved my pistol from its hiding place, taped to the roof of the cabinet, and moving across the room, soundlessly as smoke, I approached the window to get a good view of the street. The Secret Service had set me up with mirrors and movement-sensitive cameras. Any slight disturbance was detected by the lenses and relayed on a closed-circuit TV to my television, which magically switched on. The mirrors and lenses were hidden in the wooden fixtures attached to the outside walls, and in the thin strip of front garden, in such diverse places as a bird feeder and a drain pipe cowling. It allowed me to look out and see every nook and cranny at the front of the house. If I wanted to see the back of the house, I had to change channel, but I kept the remote on the narrow wooden mantel above the fireplace. There was no time to check if the coast was clear at the back. The birds had been chirping happily in the garden, so I assumed I was safe from the rear for the time being. I was stunned to see Fletcher, Andy McNabb Fletcher, with Andy McNabb Fletcher. McNabb is the nickname she gives to Andy Fletcher, and my boss, Professor Akshay Bala, standing outside my cottage. Immediately, I lowered my weapon so the neighbours could not see it and threw the door open. Standing back, Andy bundled Akshay through the doorway, then followed, slamming the door behind. I was about to speak, and Andy put his index finger to his lips. His serious face stopped me from saying, "Don't shush me." Instead, I smiled a welcome to Akshay, who smiled back broadly. Pushing Akshay forward and taking my arm, he herded us into the kitchen. I was just thinking how quiet everything was. "No birdsong," he announced, looking at me. The next second, the glass shattered. I jumped and swore as glass showered onto the floor at my feet. Andy pulled us both down below the window. The three of us squatted like Tuareg huddled around a fire. Akshay looked shocked. I was not sure if he was more shocked at being shot at or by my swearing. I'm normally so demure. I whispered a swear word, deciding to tone it down for my boss's sake. Don't worry, it's a high-powered air rifle. It'll hurt or take your eye out, but it won't kill you. I suppose if they wanted to, they would have blown up the house with grenades. I'm worried about stun grenades. I looked at him. He was not kidding. I ran for the back door where my bulletproof vest was hanging up. Another window shattered, the glass splintering into the sink this time. I saw where the airgun pellet lodged in the plaster behind my left shoulder. Andy's assessment had been right. Shielded by the kitchen door, I took a deep breath and slipped on the vest. I'll draw their fire, I hissed. You get Akshay out of here. Wrenching open the back door, I dashed across the lawn before Andy could grab me. I heard his urgent plea. Come back, he commanded. The first pellet hit me in the thigh. It felt like a bullet, but I hopped to the shelter of the shed. It hurt. How it hurt. I caught a flash of light in the woods behind the house. The sniper was there. My flesh was burning, and I winced with pain of the pellet lodged in my leg. It had been an irrational act, but I knew that Andy would be endangering Akshay and himself, trying to protect me. I looked back, and Andy was standing with the door pinned back against the kitchen wall, his gun lowered and shaking his head. I slipped a trace around into the feeder and took a shot at the tree. The trunk glowed orange where my bullet had hit. Andy had a silencer, so I nodded and came out to give him covering fire. Our friend was an expert. He shot from my heart this time, and the pellet just embedded in my vest, though I felt the impact in my chest, a dull tap, nothing more. As I reacted by cursing, Andy swung out of the doorway, holding a silenced automatic pistol, and loosed off 6 shots in close formation. The reflection disappeared. Our man was on the move or dead. It was time to disappear too. I walked over to cover, and as I did so, I heard a shotgun report. Tiny pellets struck me in the arms, legs, and face. I was forcefully picked up and carried through the air, landing on my back painfully. I should have known there would have been more than one of them. Trouble comes not in single spies, but in battalions. Andy loosened off 3 shots in the direction of the sound and ejected the magazine, replacing it with a fresh one. I'd done nothing to respond to the shotgun shots, and did not intend to either. I was not in the mood to be peppered by a shot a second time. I struggled to my feet and dashed for the cover behind the shed. Isn't it about time you called for backup? I hissed at him, again like an irate snake. You are my backup, he replied, looking at me imploringly. I stared at him with a face that I hoped communicated my surprise, irritation, and incredulity at his stupidity, all in one expression. We had been taught sign language, but the level of profanity I wished to imbue my words with was not in my lexicon. He had the gall to put on a face that asked, what do we do now? Looking at the 2 welts on my arms that throbbed painfully, I was sure that the shot was embedded in those wounds. I was still feeling the dull ache of where the air rifle pellet hit, so I could not be sure. Pain spread throughout my body, so it was difficult to locate the precise place. I was furious that I had been hit so many times, and almost apoplectic about Andy bringing his problems to me. I was a trainee. He was SAS, for goodness sake. Willing myself to be calm, I waited for my blood pressure to ease, assess the situation, plan the escape, execute the escape. What I knew were 3 things. Akshay was their target. He had all the information they needed. There were at least 3 of them: airgun guy, shotgun guy, shotgun Charlie, and undoubtedly a third at the front of the house. They were not interested in killing Andy and I, yet. They merely wanted to incapacitate us and grab the prize. My car's on the corner, I volunteered, whispering with exaggerated mouth movements so my knight in shining armor could understand. He nodded. A man of many words, he proved to be. I slipped down the side of the house, climbed over the fence into the next door's garden, and trying to look as nonchalant as possible, I walked towards the corner. I had, of course, spotted 2 burly men in black suits. The church was at the other end of the village, and there was no funeral parlour nearby, but their focus was exclusively on my cottage windows. Scooting towards the car, I started the engine, and the beauty that she was, she purred into life. At least I could rely on something, if not someone. Slipping my gun into my right hand and steering with my left, I drove towards the 2 men who were crouching behind their vehicle. If you keep your car in second gear and accelerate, it roars like a tiger, and everyone notices. If you drive it towards another car at speed, its occupants notice you The art of frightening someone is to do it with conviction. By the time I drew level with the postbox, the men were both running for cover. They were convinced I was going to ram their car, and out of, the gun out of the window had persuaded them that I would start firing. Everyone looks brave, but when you see danger coming, you avoid it. They ran for cover of the hedge on the side of the road. Unfortunately, there was a ditch, and that ditch was full of water. I didn't hear the splash of water as they both pitched into the muddy mire. I swerved, of course. All I heard was the screech of brakes as the Polo slid to a halt, its ABS complaining loudly. The front door opened and Andy bundled poor Akshay towards the car. I already had leaned over and released the passenger door, flipping the catch on the folding front seat. Akshay had travelled in the back once or twice, so he knew what to do. As Andy slammed the door shut after him, I heard the front window of the cottage exploding. I understood. The men from the back had stormed the house, and it was their frustration rather than malice. They could not damage their asset, Akshay, but they were incensed. Their plan to take him had failed, and we were getting away. I assumed it was an air rifle. It was air rifle sharpshooter venting his fury at my poor home. I floored the accelerator like a bored teenager in the flames. We shot off down the street. We flew like an arrow out of harm's way. In my rearview mirror, I saw that the two in the ditch had just managed to climb out, and their more heavily armed colleagues had emerged from the house. I had no time to wonder which one of them would drive. They would be on our tails in minutes. What's the plan, Andy? I asked as I noticed my radio was still on and softly playing The Girl Was Faraway Eyes by the Stones, of all things. So there you go, bit of excitement there. It's a thriller, and I think it's one of my best thrillers. She's a very strong character. She's got a great sense of humor, and eventually things happen to her. Gets out of situations and then gets herself into mischief. Worth a read. The Fall, Michael Fitzalan. Take care. See you soon. Wonderful.